Welcome. This is your host, Heidi Watson, on Two-Tier Canada, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of private practice in a diverse network of health professionals. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. This is Heidi Watson on Two-Tier Canada, and today we have Carrie Lamoureux joining us on the show. She is a really good friend of mine and has saved my practice a couple times. We practice at her clinic out east from here. She is absolutely wonderful, great mentor, great inspiration, and I'm very excited to have her on the show today. I will call her now and let's see if we can get her on the line. I'm putting my phone on speaker this time and seeing if that helps with the recording. So let's see if we can get her.
Hello.
Hi, Carrie. This is Heidi calling.
Hi, Heidi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Other than running a little bit late.
No, biggie. I know you well enough.
Yes, exactly. So what do you want to chat about first? Do you want to talk about where you were educated?
Sure. So I went to kindergarten.
I should probably be more specific.
No, so I did my K-12 in a small town in southeastern Saskatchewan. And I was chomping at the bit to get out of here, so I went straight to the big city, U of R, University of Regina, and I did a BA in psychology there. When I was done that, I found that I could go back to waitressing with my BA, so I waitressed for a couple of years. And then I ended up at the University of North Dakota, where I did a master's degree in speech-language pathology.
Nice. Did you have to do any additional courses after the BA, or did it just have all of your prereqs that you needed?
I did have to do, I was what they called a post-bac, so a post-baccalaureate student, where you have to do like a whole year of speech-language core content classes. And then after that, I had to apply to grad school. So I had to do like 3 years instead of 2 for my master's. Yeah, it was just one extra year.
That's not bad, though. And they took all the other credits and everything. They accepted that?
They did. All my stuff transferred over. Yeah, I was actually amazed. And actually, my scores in the States, like when they transferred them from Canada to the States, it's like they bumped me up a grade, like, in everything. So,
ooh, nice.
I don't know about that system, but whatever. I like it.
Yeah, up that GPA.
It was all good. Yeah, because actually at the U of R, I got kicked out one semester because I decided not to do any assignments. So,
yeah,
I just, thought that might maybe affect me.
I definitely did that in my first year of my undergrad as well. I was like, I don't need to go to class. This is overrated.
Yeah, mine was the second year, actually. It was second semester. That's what it was. It was spring semester. And so I just quietly moved back in with my mom and dad for, the semester. And pretended like I just wanted to come home and like as if they didn't know. But yeah, so.
But yeah, it's kind of like a lot of high schools can force people to like try and pick their careers. And it's like knowing what you want so early. And so I know my undergrad was kind of wandering from side to side all over the place until I found where I was going. So I think maybe that's why it's nice to have a year to just find what you're doing.
Absolutely. I did that too. I was one major, then another, then this, then the other, whatever. And it was a huge cultural shock for coming from a small town, like a high school of graduating 18 students, in my class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to lecture halls. This is a big deal.
That is a major difference.
Yeah.
So where did you land after you finished your master's? Did you stay in the States or did you come back to Canada?
Well, so when I went to UND, I lived in a co-ed dorm, and I met a nice boy. Actually, okay, so at the time I was a smoker, and he had a smoking room. That's how I met him. He was one of the few rooms you could go to smoke. So I met my husband, who's from South Dakota, and I just, kind of feel like I got stuck there because he was there, and we were like halfway between my family and his family. We ended up in Fargo, North Dakota. So, and I was there for, I don't know, 14 years, I guess.
Nice. What did you do there?
So I started out right after I graduated. I did early intervention in Minnesota. So Fargo, Moorhead are like on the border of North Dakota and Minnesota.
Okay.
So I worked in both Minnesota and North Dakota, but I did early childhood at their early intervention services, like government-run program for 2 years, and then got downsized from there because the public school took it over and kicked us out and put in their people. So from there,
like, was there a big overhaul in speech language down there, or why did they do that?
I don't even know how. Like, it was a privately run. The early intervention was owned by a company in Minnesota, and it was like it's a private company. It's kind of, it's kind of similar to something like, I don't even know what it would be like here. Maybe like Yorkton Tribal Council, how they're kind of separate, but they're also funded. And anyhow, so this private company was running it, called Lakes Country Service Program. And and so there was a shift that all of a sudden public health wanted to take over the early intervention, and so of course they took their school SLPs, put them in those positions, and booted a few of us out. So, which was obviously what was meant to be, because I just moved on from there and went to from there I moved to school. So I did K-12 school in rural Minnesota.
How many schools were you responsible for?
I'm going to say 5.
5, yeah. Somebody driving around.
Right. So we had like a self-contained special ed classroom at the time, because it was a while ago. But we had, preschool, special needs preschool that was just completely segregated from the rest of the school. And then we also did, other rural Minnesota schools, probably within, within about 60 miles. There's about 4 or 5 more that we went to, and more like once a week and that kind of thing. But we did birth up to age 7. So some was school age, some was home visit stuff. I never really did much home visiting stuff. I did more of the center-based stuff there.
Right.
So I did that for 3 years. Got really sick of my special ed director, who didn't ever have our back. So she was evil, but I'm sure she still is. So if you're listening, no. Norma. So I got so sick of that that I moved on to doing rehab stuff. So in the States, rehab companies are huge. Medicare,
So is it adult or pediatric rehab, or both?
It was mostly adults. It was skilled nursing facilities and some outpatient hospital, like health clinics out of the hospitals.
Okay.
I did some, I did a little bit of inpatient stuff where I did swallowing studies, so video fluoroscopies.
Oh, and they actually had them there.
Yeah, I would go down to the radiology with, the radiologist and whoever the patient was, who was
That's nice and convenient.
Yeah, and sometimes it was an inpatient who needed a swallowing study done. So did some of that. There were a few pediatric kiddos I saw through the rehab companies, but it was like a total shift. It was from playing games and doing our tick to swallowing and stroke stuff. And
so how did you feel doing that? Did you have to take any course upgrades, or did you just like rely on textbooks, or did you just kind of go with it and on the job training?
I did do specific training for doing a video fluoroscopy. So I went to the guru Jerry Logeman and went to one of her workshops to learn how to interpret video fluoroscopies.
Right.
And then it was just, the rest of it was all stuff I'd learned. I just hadn't used it really, right? I mean,
exactly.
There's not a huge difference between language in a preschooler and language in someone who's had a stroke and lost it. It's just one has never had it and the other one just has to regain it. So, I mean, obviously different activities and that kind of stuff, but
to match the age group.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's like, it can be pretty similar. Yeah.
So not too much of a step out.
So I did all that, did a bunch of rehab stuff. I worked for, I think, probably, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 8 different rehab companies. Like I was part-time for a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I traveled a lot. I put a lot of miles on in those years.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever have to stay like overnight in other communities, or would you always come back home?
There were just a couple of occasions where I stayed over, and that was only because they were so far away that it would be ridiculous to drive. If it's like 6 hours to drive.
Oh, yeah.
3 there, 3 back, or even sometimes I would do no, those really far ones I'd go like as far as Bemidji, which would be 4 hours from where I was, and
yeah, so that's a full day of driving. Never mind seeing clients.
Yeah, and really only a couple times, and then just a couple. I tried not to, right, because I wanted to be home with my family, so.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So then what happened after that? What pulled you away from those ones?
So what happened there was that we decided we were moving back to Canada. And that would be about 8 years ago. In June of 2010, we moved home. So I had worked for one rehab company I worked for quite a few years, and so I quit the other ones before we moved, and I just worked for them full time a bit, and then we're moving back home here to small town Saskatchewan, and so I left that and came home.
Nice. Would you have expected that when you were in school, after leaving home and like being like I need to get out of this small town and then coming back to it? Would you have expected that?
No. Let's say no. No, I was, when you're young, you've got all these ideas, and then you start having your own family, and it's like, I don't really want to be in this big city where, it's not so nice for raising families, and I wanted my family to see my kids and, them to know grandma and grandpa and cousins and aunties and uncles and blah, blah, blah. So we, and the funny thing is that it wasn't even my idea. It was my husband's idea.
Oh.
I came home one day,
and he's from South Dakota.
Yeah. But he has a really small family, right? Just his mom and his brother. So, and so I was like, let's do that.
Ready. And so then what kind of situation were you walking into going back to the small town, like job-wise? Why did you do private? What was the motivations for that?
Okay, so I wasn't expecting anything. I mean, I applied at the school division, the public school system, right? Because I thought that's probably all there would be to do here. There's no rehab companies. I can't work for 6 different people and, make money driving and mileage and all that stuff. So
no.
So I applied at the local school district, and I found out later what happened is that the lady I applied to lost my application somehow, so she never got back to me. Until I met her a few years later, and I was like, hey, I applied, and she was like,
what?
I said, yeah, I did. Anyhow, that wasn't meant to be, but okay, so this is how small towns work. My mom works at the post office, and one day, a lady came in, and her husband was a principal at a local First Nation school. And so she found out that I was moving home. She knew I was a speech therapist. And so she said to my mom at the post office, hey, my husband's looking for a speech therapist. Do you think your daughter wants the job? And he called me, and the special ed director called, or the director of education called, and that's how I got the job. Just like that.
Nice.
Yeah, no interview, no nothing. Just,
so
hey,
how long had you even been home at that point when you got this phone call?
Oh, that was before. I mean, it was the summer before. Like it was, I don't know. It was probably like June when we moved home, or May, or.
Oh my goodness.
Like I knew coming home that there was something probably for me there. I just didn't know how many days or what exactly. So.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and that
awesome.
was just part time. And so I did that just part time. Oh yeah, well I was pregnant when I moved home, so I was pregnant, and so part time was okay.
Yes.
Because I would have been 7 months along, and so in December I had a baby, so I was 6 months. But December I had a baby, and I took 2, maybe 3 months off, because that's how I roll. Because in the States you don't get all that time off, right? I took 6 weeks with Jack when I had my baby in the States, and I went back to work after 6 weeks. So
6 weeks, that's pretty brief.
Oh, you're right. My husband quit his job though, so he was staying home, but that I wouldn't do it again.
No, it's a little intense.
Not that I'm going to do it again, but I would never do that again.
And so then with your second baby, how long did you wait till you went back to the part-time gig?
It was February, so it was 3 months.
Nice.
Which which, twice as long as 6 weeks.
Yep. A little bit longer to get into the flow, get used to it.
I still wouldn't choose that either, but yeah. But the problem was that, like, when I moved home, I didn't have enough hours accumulated, so I didn't get any benefits. I couldn't get any maternity leave because the number of hours I'd worked, right?
Right.
So I hadn't been home long enough to work hours here.
So then, I had a thought. What was it?
Oh, no.
It's gone. It floated out the wall.
So I did that. I started that in 2010. And then I went back in 2011, February, and I was there, I've been there up till now, but then in 2014, I started doing some private practice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, so that started out, I don't even know what I paid. Like, I rented like a 10 by 10 square within this pottery studio in downtown, small town here. And I had to like carry my totes in and set up my table every time and put it all away so that when they had classes, my stuff wasn't in the way.
Right.
So I did that for, I don't know, maybe, I think I did it kind of through the summer, and then I found a place to rent where I could move to. I was just kind of testing it and seeing if I even wanted to, and then I realized how different it is when you get to do private stuff versus stuck in the public system, or even grinding out Medicare minutes, right? Because it's all about how much time you spend and how much you get reimbursed, and it's quite a grind. So this is way better for me.
Yeah, way freer.
Way. Flexibility is awesome, and the progress you see with kids is fantabulous compared to anything else I've done.
Yeah, when you're limited by hours and everything, and
I don't know. I don't need any. Like, so Friday, 2 days ago, I quit my job at the local First Nations school that I've been at for 8 years, and it was like such a sense of freedom, of independence, and of, okay, no, like, whatever I make it is what it's going to be, and I'm ready for that.
And so you started in 2014, it's 2018 now, and so just you've been gradually building your caseload, gradually transitioning. Did you find that difficult, hard, intimidating, scary?
So it's always a little bit scary because, everything ebbs and flows, and you don't know, so you might have 20 on your caseload now, but as these kids take care of what they need to and move on, then, you have 14, and like, there's no guaranteed income is really the problem. Not problem, but it's what you have to deal with in the private
intimidation practice. Yeah,
you have to just roll with it, because the school always provided me with this guarantee. I always had at least this nest egg amount every month.
The safety.
Yeah, and so letting go of that is kind of a little scary.
So let's back up just a little bit.
Okay.
When you rented the pottery studio, why? Like, why did you do that? What? When did you wake up and you're like, hey, I think I want to try this?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One of them is that parents in the local community knew what I did.
Yes.
And if their kid needed help, they would ask me if I would help them. Right?
Yeah. So how many times did that have to happen?
Yeah. And I felt guilty because I was the one in town who had the skill to do it. I mean, that's my stuff, I know. And I just felt like, they would tell me that they're on the waiting list and it's a year long, or it's 6 months to get in for an evaluation to even know if they need help or whatever. And it just felt like there were so many kids not being helped. And so that was a piece of it. Also, so that was 2014, like in the spring, I started doing the private stuff. There's one mom especially, actually, who kept kind of pounding on me for it. But back up to 2013. So in May of 2013, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which made me rethink a lot of things. It made me, step back and think, well, why can't I do that? Of course I can. The only thing stopping me is me not doing it.
Yeah.
And that really super motivated me to step outside of my box and be like, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. once you put your mind to it, right?
Because it's like a comfort zone bubble, right? Like
everything. It's just like the school job I just left. I mean, it was so comfortable. I hated it, but it was easy, and it was what I knew. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's comfort. Safe.
Yeah.
And it's like every day that you're not enjoying it, that you're not living to what you like, to the fullest potential.
Yep.
And then, but it's dangerous in the unknown zone. And you
sure.
don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's just like anything, right? It's like people form habits because those are things that are the known things. Whether they're good for you or not isn't really the bottom line. It's what you know, so it feels okay. It feels good to you to do it, even though it could be counterproductive, right? Which, yeah, huge. That's huge. So, yeah, breast cancer instigated a lot of things, a lot of changes in my life. And, of course, that's what everything does.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I just was like, well, why can't I do that? Well, why can't I just go run a place? Well, you know, whatever. Of course I can do this. People do this all the time.
Just a quick interruption here. Two-Tier Canada has been brought to you by the Electronic Health Information System, an electronic health record made specifically for private practitioners. Check out our demo at e-his.ca. Now, let's get back to this month's interview. And like, were you seeking the freedom, or were you seeking the more flexibility in time? Like, what would be the pieces that you just kind of, that drew you towards it?
The independence is huge for me. The not answering to anyone. And once I started doing it, I could see the difference in, you know, a 20-minute session once every 6-day cycle in the school system, or an hour a week with a parent there to educate and to see what to do to carry over at home. It's like, it's amazing to me. It's phenomenal, the changes you can make in those different, and even when I did the rehab stuff where, I mean, if they were a new stroke, they got 3 to 5, well, they probably got 5 times a week. Like, you'd see a person an hour a day, 5 times a week, but it was under this stressful, the environment. I mean, obviously if it's a new stroke, you're in the hospital. It's just acute stuff, and this is just like it just feels more like you're helping people.
Yeah, and you can control like the energy in the space and the way that the clinic is presented, and you don't have to go with that clinical medical model unless you want to.
Right. Yeah, it's all your thing. It's whatever you want it to be.
Whatever you match.
Yeah, whoever you are, you can be that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So did your private practice just like take off like crazy? Did you advertise, or was it just something that grew organically? How did that go?
Yeah, it was, so I worked part-time at the school at first, so I didn't really have a lot of time. Like, I had some, but I had a new baby and all that stuff, so I didn't push really hard to try to make it super successful. It just kind of word of mouth at first. And then I got hooked up with some of the early childhood providers in the area who started referring kiddos, and then I started realizing that I could make it grow, right? So I started sending information out to local doctors and public health nurses. And then I started Facebook. I did some print ads, but I never really felt like I got much business out of them. I feel like, anything online is the way to go for advertising. And it seems like anytime I do, which I haven't advertised for, I don't even know, probably 6 or 8 or it seems now are like, it's just, I'm at a point where everything is kind of snowballing and my name's out there and people know that I'm an option. And so even like the public health speech therapists are referring.
Because they know about you now.
Yeah, so they say, my wait list is this long. And I've started doing recently some work for a program called Jordan's Principle, which is funding for First Nations students who aren't getting what they need, based on a little guy who was in northern Manitoba, and because of all the different agencies that were fighting over who should pay for what, he actually passed away because he wasn't medically taken care of like he needed to be. So this Jordan's Principle provides funding with very few questions asked to make sure that the kids who need it are getting it. And that is starting to no ball.
Yeah. And in really rural areas, there's really nothing.
And there is nothing. So my point was, yeah, that was my point, was that now some of these speech therapists who are providing like once a month for these kiddos who have severe delays are writing letters for the early childhood workers stating that we can only get there once a month and they need more than that. And so that's how I'm getting approval to go into the communities, First Nations communities, to provide more service there.
Yeah, because it's not enough.
It's not, and they're finally admitting that it's not enough. Not, oh, we provide that service, but we try to, and it's not meeting the need.
Yes.
So that was kind of amazing to me, actually, that they're admitting it. I mean, there's a public school speech therapist and a public health one who have written letters stating that I can't give this kid what they need.
Yeah, and we need more supports here.
So, yeah, and so what's the point? I don't know. It's like a Band-Aid on a broken leg, right? It's just not doing...
Yeah, enough. And that's the thing with allied health across like our province is there's just not enough of us compared to the demand. And so it's just people are not getting services, or they have to drive hours for services.
Hours with little ones. Like this one who I'm starting to go see was going to drive 2 hours into Regina with her almost 4-year-old. She has 4 other children. Right, so they're going to drive 2 hours into Regina for a speech therapy appointment. I'm sure he would perform well. He has sensory processing issues. She said he cries all the way in vehicles. Doesn't matter how far you go. He cries all the time, all the way. And so this was going to be their solution. It was, 4 hours on the road, and then hopefully,
And that's like the whole thing with big public kind of funding is that how, like, I know around in my area, they've had job postings for sometimes years where they just don't get filled and there's just nothing. And so then they have nothing they can do, nothing they can say. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, you have to drive 2 hours.
Yeah, well, we've had even kids who, well, you would know this because they were referred for OT. There's school-age kids in this area who are not, their services aren't there. Like they didn't have an OT. And so they're referring to my clinic here, and you come and do the OT. Like,
because there's just nothing.
Right? So you come from Wayward all the way here, which is a drive for you, but at least it gives them something closer, I guess.
Exactly. More accessible.
Yeah. And so you're so right about that limited people. I mean, we just don't have enough people trained here. And when I moved home, one of the things that was most glaringly obvious for me was that, oh my gosh, okay, so in the States, OTs, PTs, and speech, I mean, there are teams. Even in the small schools I worked in, we had a PT, an OT, we had at least one speech, we had an OT assistant and a PT assistant, right? So there was always somebody trained there at whatever school.
Yeah.
I moved home, and I was like nobody even knows about OTs.
Yeah, schools that have nothing.
Tell them what they do. I was lucky that speech was an OT, because if it was, I was like, I couldn't believe the difference.
And it varies all across Canada, but it's nice to get this like rural perspective, right? Where if you're in an urban center, you might feel like, oh, there's lots of us and I can't find work and all I can find is like casual acute care. Whereas there's so much opportunity out of the cities that is just not being serviced. And
not at all.
And there's still lots of people out here, even though people don't think there is.
Yeah, there are. But it's like, there's so few. I mean, I think it's so undervalued that there are so few jobs. I mean, how many OTs do they have in Southeast Cornerstone?
Right. And so how many schools is that now? I can't even remember.
I know, it's insane. When you look at the map and the area it covers.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of driving, and I think they only have 2 full-time positions that are funded. So that's the thing. It's all about funding. And so with your practice, with funding, is that something that you've ever worried about? Does that keep you up at night, like worrying about your clients and how they pay? Or like what have you found has happened?
What I've found has happened is that, okay, so now in 4 years' time, I've been stiffed only twice, which I think is a pretty good record.
Nice.
And it wasn't large amounts. And I found that some people just quit coming. And I think it's, sometimes it's a financial thing, obviously. Some people will run their insurance out for the year and then let me know that, we're done for this year.
Yeah, that's all they got.
See you in January. And then there are just some other long-termers who just make it happen and just always find the money. And I'm sometimes amazed by that. I mean, I've had 2 kiddos and a third one who have been with me almost the full 4 years. Like every week, you know, showing up, asking questions, like every week for 4 years, the commitment that takes, not just money, but time and effort.
And the implementing the programs at home, like this isn't like a small 6-week try this, see you in a year. Like this is dedication.
No, it is huge for families, which I think is why it pays off and it feels so good, because you see the results.
Because they're doing the work.
For real. They're interested in, and you can engage them. Where I mean, we can do that at the school level, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. It seems like there's just less responsibility at the school. There's just less accountability, I guess, is what it is. And so things just fall away.
And it's hard when there's so many other students and programs, and this has to get done, and then this happens on this random day, and you know the story. So one thing that's really unique about your practice is where you're renting now and where you kind of plan to future move. So you're not in like a clinic. Your actual home base isn't in a clinic medical space, but I think it works really well, and I really enjoy coming out there. But did you want to talk about that, like where you are?
Sure. Right. So I did look into the local clinic. So we have a health clinic here in a nursing home. And so I looked into trying to rent a room there, but the problem, of course, is that they provide that service already. Right.
So you get this duplication issue.
Yeah, so, you know, it doesn't look good if you're bringing someone in to do something that you're supposed to be doing. So that didn't work out. But I did rent a space it's a home builder's building. And it used to be a John Deere, so it's kind of an interesting place. But they had redone a bunch of the building to move out of the, like, kind of back rooms. And so the back rooms were available. And, I rented them from a local guy, and I've been there, I don't know, I guess 3 years or whatever, whatever the math is. Well, you've been coming for 2, so I've been there at least 3.
Has it been 2 already? Oh my goodness, time flies.
It'll be 2, I think, next month or whenever you started coming.
Wow.
And so so I rent there, and it's a good space, but I also have purchased a home. A small home, like a 3-bedroom place that we're going to renovate, that we've been working on for a year and a half. And so I'm going to move my therapy room over to this house, and I've got permission from the local town council that I can use the house as a business and all that good stuff. So, so I'm excited to move over there and kind of start fresh with everything kind of new. I'm just looking forward to it. So I also do some other work over there. I have like an energy healing kind of a space that I'm also going to be operating out of that same building. So I have kind of a 2-for-1.
And are you already using it for that?
I am. Yeah.
That is already launched. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it still needs to get a little bit of touch-ups, paint and flooring stuff, but I'm using it.
Nice.
As it is for now.
And this is how it kind of goes, right? It's just like this natural growth. Like you started off in the pottery space, and now like it's renting like a larger building space from another person, and then it's like your own ownership. Like, and you didn't have to rush it. You didn't have to force it. You didn't have to, it just happened.
It did just, it did. It just kind of evolved like that. I'm good with it. Yeah.
And so you're very rural, and you're out in a space. Have you ever felt lonely or isolated from other health professionals?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yeah. And so I searched for an OT for a while because I was like, I was so used to being part of a team, right? I mean, everything we did was team, all the healthcare stuff and the school stuff. And I had a team all the time. It was OT, PT, speech. It was always all 3 of us together. I was never just on my own.
Right.
And so, at first, and even just having other speech therapists, because we had more than one,
And you can just ask right away, and they're right there.
Yeah. And so being part of the First Nation school too, there's not really a network, right? When you're part of the public school system, they have a network of speech therapists, and they meet once a month, and they, whatever. At least they're kind of, you have some contacts and can grow that way. But I'm quite isolated from everybody.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do about that?
Well, what I did was I hooked up with a fellow private speech therapist. And so we kind of, we are our own support team, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
We've done lots of trainings together, and her dad actually was the director of education who hired me at the First Nation school, so.
Nice.
Yeah, so she kind of knew about me, and that kind of thing. We kind of just bounced off each other. And she did public schools too, and she's kind of been around the block, but now we're both just doing private, so.
Same kind of background, same kind of experiences, and
yeah, for sure. We kind of
yeah, because it would be different if, let's say, you like brought in a new grad or something like that, like, because then you get into this mentor-mentee relationship, and it's a little different than somebody who's like on your level, been there, done that, and you can just call whenever you need.
Yeah, it's just straight talk. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a good sounding board. It's a really good sounding board.
What are your dreams for your practice in the future? Do you plan on changing like what you do with your kiddos at all? Like any future training, like other than going into the house, the bigger clinic space?
Probably what I'll do, is that I've had this training called Prompt, and so it's a hands-on training for kiddos with severe speech sound disorders. Well, not sound disorders, but motor planning problems, basically. Mm-hmm. So kiddos who have verbal apraxia. And it's a really intensive training. I've done 2 levels of it. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo the 2nd level. I just feel like I need a refresher. And my cohort too, Amber, is going to go with me. And we're going to just, kind of share the renewal of our... It's like the kind of thing that people seek out. Like I have one kiddo who comes from not northern Manitoba, but a couple of hours north of Winnipeg, and by the time she gets here, it's like a 2-hour drive for her. Uh-huh. And they come weekly. And at first they were coming twice a week. Ooh. Or coming and doing 2 sessions in one day. So they'd drive there 2 hours, do a session, take an hour break, do a session, and go home. So it's the kind of, like, it's a world-renowned type of training, and I love working with these kind of kiddos. This is the kiddo who I just evaluated out at the new First Nation I'm going to start going to. He has apraxia too, and I know it's going to be phenomenal for him. So it's just the best training I've ever been to in my life.
And do you know what it stands for? Like, is it an abbreviation or?
Yeah, it's an abbreviation. It's so let's say it's
You can text it to me, and I can put it in the show notes too.
It's Prompts for Restructuring Oral Muscular Phonetic Targets.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how many levels is it?
Okay, so there's like a basic, and then there's the next level is called bridging. So there's intro is the first one, and then bridging, and then you can go on to do like a case study, like a 6-month long, where you just follow one kiddo and submit to an instructor. And then if you want to, you can become an instructor by attending so many different trainings. And it's the coolest. It's the most, what do I want to say? It's the most hands-on training that I've ever seen in speech therapy.
Nice.
Right. It's an actual physical manipulation of the articulators and everything involved.
Not just like a theoretical lecture style.
Yeah, and it's not like we do in articulation therapy. Look at me do this kind of thing. It's help them do it. It's more like a muscle teaching kind of. I mean, you're teaching, right? You're teaching the sequence. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's been so successful. I think it's fabulous.
I'm totally gonna poke you in this direction, but do you have a formal education budget, and do you like have really strict accounting structures for your business?
Well, let me hand you over to my husband. Do I have an education budget? Okay, so here's what's happened to me. As of Friday, when I quit my job at school, I don't even have a plan for that right now.
Nice.
But I did. All those years at the school, I had a really good budget for continuing education. I had a budget for testing materials, and I had a budget for therapy materials. And it was about $6,000 all told.
Wow,
So,
nice.
yeah, and so they always pay for my license, and yeah, so now I'm on my own, and those are some things I had to consider. You know, $1,000 a year for my license. I gotta pay that out of my pocket now. Continuing ed, yeah, because going to the prompt training was, I don't know, a couple grand probably. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a really good question.
From my perspective and from my practice and everything, I truly believe that, like, if it's meant to be, you've said that a couple times in today's show, like, if it's meant to be or this wasn't meant to be, like, money comes. Like, it's not even something to be worried about or to stress over. Like, if it's supposed to happen, it just happens.
It does. And I absolutely 100% believe in, you attract what you believe. I mean, it's that simple.
And so, yeah, these kiddos absolutely need this. And so then you absolutely need the training, and that funding will come, and it'll just happen.
For sure.
And then, yeah, you have a friend to go with you, which is awesome, too.
Yes, it's so awesome. But before, when I had the school job, I would, like, pay the expenses because, you know, all the extra stuff. But now we're going to have to split it. So she may not be so happy about that one, but
hey, it's the reality of what it is.
It's life.
So your husband takes care of your accounting and all that kind of stuff. That's a really nice partnership you guys have there.
Yeah, he's like numbers man. He's type A, and you know, it's fantastic for my business.
Yes, no kidding.
Although what he did just figure out for our taxes was that he needs to be paying himself, and so we started expensing more things through, you know, the house we bought for the clinic area and his salary. Yeah, so we just bumped that up significantly to significantly reduce my taxes. In fact, I'm getting a refund instead of paying, which is insane because I have to pay my own taxes on all my private practice income, right? And so, yeah, he found enough expenses to knock that down.
That is fantastic because he is working for you. Like, it is a job. Like, it's
absolutely,
but it's so easy to kind of be like, well, you know, we're one unit. Like, the money is just for one family unit. Like, I don't have to worry about this. But those things, those tax things, even though we don't want to think about it, they are super important.
Yeah, well, he thinks about that kind of stuff all the time. So that's,
good.
That's why it happened. Because he was like, well, what if I do this? I'm going to do that. Like, sure. Fabulous.
Whatever works.
Yeah, it takes him time. I mean, when he does my billing every month, and it's so nice, though, because if he has a question about, I mean, I'm obviously right there. So he prints it out, and I check it over, and then he asks me a few questions about how come this one like that, this one like that, because he knows, he gets familiar with my caseload. And so he knows what questions to ask me to keep me on task too.
Yep. And like, how often did Heidi come out?
Yeah, Heidi, how come you saw this? How come, why do you have this kid here? Heidi saw it and you didn't bill Heidi for the room. I'm like,
ooh.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just ask Heidi.
What about other, like, so we have a rental agreement that is an alternative income for your practice that you don't have to see anybody, and then there's income, right? Like, do you have any other alternatives that are coming into your practice yet, or?
Not yet.
Yeah, just renting to other clinicians for your multidisciplinary clinic.
Well, you know, I've considered using the space for like educational kinds of clinics and that sort of thing. I mean, it's not renovated yet, so I haven't gone too far in the thought process. But yeah, I'm considering doing some sorts of workshops or whatever, maybe out of my new place. And it wouldn't necessarily be me doing them, of course, but especially in the energy healing part of it. I mean, there are so many different people I could bring in to do different workshops. I'm just not sure how much interest there would be right in this town. It's
they might have to travel just a little bit. But like you did those mental health first aid workshops?
Yeah, I did. I just did the legwork and brought the people in, and so that was just a cost recovery basis. It wasn't like I was really trying to make money on it. I just wanted to offer the service because I just feel it's very important.
And those were successful though, right?
Yeah, they were. They were good. The first couple, and then after that, the interest just fell off. You know, it's kind of we saturated this small area community. So, yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing. Get it out there,
and then not right. Yeah.
And then maybe in another
everyone got it who wanted it. And
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a fabulous course, though. Anyone should take that. Mental Health First Aid from the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's still on my to-do list. I need to get on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, everyone gets their CPR. It's the same thing, except it's for mental health instead of medical emergency kind of stuff.
Exactly. And holding it to that same importance as the physical, like.
Exactly. Because it's way more important, in my opinion, than the physical.
Yeah. Because you can't see it, and it could be big trouble.
Right? And I think it causes the physical. I mean, that's just my energy stuff, right? I think everything's
connected, mind, body.
Your energy system, yeah, and your energy system is what produces the symptom in your physical body, whatever it is. It's got an energetic root, so.
Exactly. Are you planning? Do you manage how much of each kind of business that you feed into, how many clients you want, or does you just let it happen as it happens with like the energy clients and your like speech pathology clients?
So I put way more energy and effort into the speech therapy than I have the energy stuff.
But the energy stuff's pretty new, right?
Oh yeah, it's been about a year kind of I've been dabbling, and then the last, I'd say, maybe 6 months or so, more developing it, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, just different, it's very different kinds of clientele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different kind of piece.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
You just need different connections, right? I mean, to find people who are interested in energy work, you have to be part of a different community, and my name's not out in that community. It takes time to build. Just like the speech stuff, at first it was very small, and it slowly grew and grew. And I feel like the energy work will do the same. It needs time to grow and be what it's going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just like a plant, it's got to grow on its own. What advice would you give people who were just thinking of going into private practice? Like, what would you have even said to yourself when you were first going into private practice?
I would have said you can try it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. I mean, just try it, just like anything. If you don't know, just try it. If it feels like you should, do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel well, you can leave.
Absolutely. You can always go find your 9-to-5 if you want one.
There's lots of demand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I know why.
Exactly. Well, I don't want to take up your whole day. This is a Sunday for us that we're recording this. And so thank you so much for all of your wisdom and being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Heidi.
And I will talk to you later.
Okie dokie. Have a good day.
You too.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So huge thank you to Carrie for being on the show today. That was absolutely wonderful. So much wisdom there that she shared with us. I'm going to put all of her contact information and her Facebook kind of stuff in the show notes so you can get a hold of her if you ever need any sort of guidance, have referrals to send, or interested in the work that she does. Also, please subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review, comments. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about the show, and any thoughts that you have, questions that you have. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to help you with. So make sure you subscribe. And I hope you guys all have an awesome day. Go out there and make yourself a great day. And we'll see you on next month's show. Bye.